Welcome to Write This Down with Maddie Birdcage. As a global marketing advisory founder, a business educator, and psychology-informed strategist with a full family life and an addiction to luxury travel, I'm here to let you into the inner workings of my businesses, my family life, and my mind to show you how to live the good life. Each episode, I promise to give you practical takeaways you can take action on right away to get you closer to being that calm, growth-focused CEO in control of your business, your marketing, and your life. So make sure you write this down. Welcome back to another episode of Write This Down with Maddie Birdcage. Today, I'm going to get a little bit bossy because this is super important stuff that we need to talk about. No one cares about your content? Good. That's how it starts. If you're posting and it feels like the internet is ignoring you, this is the episode for you. Not because I'm handing you a hack on how to fix it, but because I'm going to be holding up a mirror and it might be a little bit uncomfortable. So today we'll talk about why content doesn't land and why that's not the end and how to move through it with a strategy that actually fits you and your goals. And if you're starting this episode, you are in the right place. This is the beginning of the next stage of your life and I'm so excited. Now, here's the truth. If no one cares right now about your content, it doesn't mean your business can't grow. It means your audience just hasn't found you yet. Those are different problems with different solutions. And by the end of this episode, you're going to have a very simple definition of brand clarity that you can remember, a 3-line message that you can write today, a 4-post plan to wake up your audience this week, and a steadier mindset so you keep going. Because I know it's not easy. Now, before we get started, I actually want to share a personal story. I have had seasons where I posted daily, multiple times a day, and still felt invisible, and it is frustrating. I remember filming on my phone or on my DJI at the beach with a clean idea, a clean caption, and it got the kind of engagement you could count on your hands. Not what I expected. I would refresh the feed over and over and nothing moved, or one more view, and it is uncomfortable. It makes you want to withdraw. But that day, something shifted in me. I stopped chasing volume and instead I started focusing on telling the truth about what I actually do and why it matters. I got very specific about who I'm for, what I help them become, and how to do it. And then another personal moment I want to share, I was at a yacht show years ago, taking everything in, thinking, one day I will live my version of this. Now that experience didn't change my life itself, but what changed my life was bringing that energy back into my work and showing up publicly as myself very consistently because I had a very clear goal. I wasn't louder, I wasn't fake, I was clearer. And all of these learnings, that is the thread of what I'm going to be talking about today. Now, there is one freelancer that we have worked with that I think gives you a really good example. So let's call her Jade because that is her name. She was a freelancer who had skills, referrals, and a decent track record, but her content, it read like a committee wrote it. That's the best way I can explain it. It was helpful, it was tidy, and it was completely forgettable. So we did one thing for her. We figured out her clarity, who she's for, which is founders who are stuck between DIY marketing and hiring full agency. And then we worked out what she helps them become, which was confident, strategic marketers who attract clients on demand. We then focused on one practical story she could tell about the client outcome. And then her next 4 posts were very, very simple. She needed a mirror post naming the stuck point or the identity tension, a receipt post with a short before and after, a 3-step method post, and a belief post which draws a clear line in the sand. Nothing was viral. It was just super, super honest. And within a few weeks, her DM shifted from, oh, nice tips, nice advice, to, I think you're describing me. Can we talk? And that is the power of clarity. It is not about getting louder. It is about getting clearer. Now, I hope those few stories really set the tone of what we are diving into today, because when the market is quiet for you, it's usually one or more of these 3 things. And we're going to break these down in detail. The first issue you could be facing is that you have a misaligned message. Now, what this really means is that you are talking, but you are not talking to the decision your best fit buyer is actually trying to make. You are solving yesterday's problem or a problem that you don't feel, and You can really tell if this is you because it shows up if you are giving a lot of generic value posts and they get a lot of polite likes, but then zero actions. Or comments like, great tips, instead of, oh my God, this is me, what should I do next? If your call to actions feel pushy because the pre-decision tension wasn't named first, that is another thing. So what we need to do, if you are potentially experiencing this, I want you to diagnose it right now. So can you, for me, pause this if you need to, but answer out loud, my person is currently deciding whether to option A or option B. I help them decide by showing them this. Now, if you can't fill those blanks in under a minute, then there is something very off with your message and we need to do some deeper thinking to figure all of that out. Now, this is all part of the initial strategy that we usually do with our clients and the strategy that you need to have. But it's also really important to keep coming back to this. Keep coming back to this part of your strategy. So even if you have a strategy, you need to keep coming back to it. And when we do advisory for clients, we always, of course, start with strategy. So I'm going to share with you the practical advice and the workshopping that Maria did with this client. So what they decided to do, we wanted to shift to start every post by naming the decision that their audience was actually wrestling with. So instead of doing a post that's like, here's a how-to for everyone, they created posts that was more like, here's what to do if you're here. They then backed it up with proof that mirrors that decision, so a before and after tied to the choice that they just had to make. So for example, the client came to us with an idea for saying, here's 5 spring trends to try. Not very exciting, is it? Now, because we've done the strategy with this client, we actually knew that her audiences were people that are looking for capsule wardrobes. They actually want to reduce the amount of clothes that they wear and they want to get more wear out of the clothes. So this is the piece of content that they actually ended up with. Torn between chasing spring trends or building a capsule you'll actually wear, here's a 6-piece spring capsule that makes 15 outfits. Then what they did, they backed it up with proof. So they created a grid of 15 looks from just the 6 pieces and they put a customer quote on in the caption, which talked about how she gets dressed so much faster because of the capsule wardrobe. Another client example that she had that we reworked, instead of just saying new arrivals drop, they actually ended up with a post that speaks to the fact that a lot of her audiences were coming back from maternity leave going into the office, and so they created this post. Back to work after mat leave and nothing feels right. Start with these 4 pieces that mix with the casuals you already own. See how we are speaking so much more directly to the problem. Then what they did, they used 4 new items that they had, and then they created 6 outfits using jeans, sneakers, stuff that you likely own. And then they showed a customer DM about the full feeling, about the feeling of being put together again. Now, both of these posts, they are so much better because they really speak to who the audience is. And in order to do that, it's very clear that you need to know exactly who your best buyers are. And that's why that audience strategy piece is so important. If you don't know who your audience is, we have our audience decode strategy, which is a signature training that we have in our self-paced programs, or if you are outsourcing your strategy to us, then we figured that out with your help, of course. Okay, but let's move on to the next issue that you are potentially facing with your content and as to why no one is actually listening to it. It's because you have a muddled identity. Now, what this really means is that people are struggling to quickly tell who you are, what you stand for, or why you're different. And because of that, they can't file you in their memory because you are all over the place and you're not fitting into any of their compartments in their brain. And that's a whole psychological phenomenon that we won't go into. But this is how it shows up in your content. If every post has a new voice, a new angle, or a new audience, or you talk about features and tactics or features and benefits more than your stance and your signature method, or maybe your website and your social media feed, they just do not even sound like the same person. That is how you know that there is a huge disconnect and there's a muddled identity. So this is how we can diagnose it. Now, what I want you to do is open your grid or your LinkedIn profile or your TikTok, whatever you're using. And in 5 seconds, I want you to figure out, can a stranger answer these questions? Who you're for, what you help them become, the signature method that you use that no one else uses. If not, your identity is muddy and we need to fix this. So an example of that, we actually had to revamp a client's website the other week because they had this exact problem. Their socials were actually working really well, but they had an old website and they had a crazy amount of people bouncing off their website, which means that they come into the website and they're leaving pretty quickly because it actually felt like a completely different brand. And people were probably even confused if it was the same business. So before we started just ripping the website apart, we asked ourselves, what are the 3 brand signals from this brand's socials that need to come across to their website? Their stance, their approach, and their archetype. So your stance, that is the hill that you will die on. For example, ours is that clarity and strategy beats volume and tactics any day of the week. So it's something that you'd like fight to the death with. Now, your approach. This is your named way of how you do things. Everyone has an approach. You just probably haven't defined it yet if you're anything like the rest of our strategy clients. And that's why it's exactly something that we cover in the strategy stage, which isn't technically part of a normal marketing strategy. But with your approach, what I want you to do is to imagine it as a trademarked name. For example, we have the birdcage funnel, right? It's like something that you can really brand and stand behind. Now, the third piece is the archetype. So that is the feeling or the personality of your brand. And big trick, this has to align with your audience schema because you cannot be showing up as a magician to an audience with a security and trust schema. You cannot be an everyman to an audience that has an empowerment and achievement schema. They don't match. And that a lot of the time when people go through our schema training in the audience decode strategy, that's where they figure out, oh crap, I've been posting as the wrong archetype. Okay, so what I want you to do, I want you to audit your last 9 posts. And if any don't reinforce at least one signal that I just mentioned, you need to prune it, so hide it or rewrite it. So for example, a weak version of a piece of content like this is like, we do marketing. A clearer one, a better post that talks about what you do, we help founder-led brands shift from DIY guesswork to a clarity-led content system that attracts on demand. Yes, it is a lot longer, but it kind of has to be able to really share what your approach is, what your signals are, and that is how you connect with audiences. That is how you go from just being another marketing person to being a very distinct marketer that works with a particular type of person in a particular way. All of this stuff is covered in the audience decode strategy or in the signature brand strategy, which is all available through our self-paced programs. Or of course, we figure this out with you in your strategy process. Okay, the third problem you may be having is inconsistent visibility, and I am guilty of this. But what it really means is that you're sending too few signals for anyone to attach meaning to. Your audience is not recognizing a pattern, so they just don't remember you. This can really affect your trust if you're not showing up consistently. So to know if you're experiencing this, you have bursts of posting followed by silence, or maybe you're topic hopping. So you have 3 unrelated themes in one single week. That's an absolute no-no. Every post that you write, it feels like you're starting from scratch instead of continuing a conversation from a post before. So what I want you to do, I want you to look at the last 14 days. Did you publish at least once a day that mirror the audience's identity tension or their stuck point, that shows a proof story, that teaches them one step of your approach, and that plants a new belief or where you share your signature stance with them? Your post should be doing that. That's 4 types of posts that you should be repeating. If you're not, that means you are under signaling. The truth is, we are actually very super guilty of this one, as I mentioned, and I really rely on my team to keep me focused, which is exactly why we believe in advisory so much and why we really started focusing in on this, especially this year. Because even if I know something, I know I need to do something, you often need a vision holder, an advisor who holds you to it, especially multi-passionate entrepreneurs like myself who are tempted to run off in different directions at the next shiny thing that comes along. So something that we actually do in-house, I've been alluding to this, but it's called the 4-post reset. And if we feel like we're getting off track, we always go back to this. These are the exact steps that I have been sharing, but I want to break them down for you in more detail because it's something that I really encourage you to do. And these are the posts that I want you to walk away with this week to post on your social media in order to reset your signaling and your consistency. So what I'm telling you is 4 clear posts beat 14 noisy ones. And the aim is recognition, not just reach alone. And whilst I say post at least once a day, why don't we just start with 4? Okay? So the first post, it is a mirror post. Now the format is, if your insert stuck moment, here's the shift that finally moves it. Keep it under 120 words, mirror an identity tension of your audience from your strategy. For example, something like, if you're wondering between DIY your marketing or outsourcing to an agency, here's how to decide. Then I would actually go on to explain that they actually need a blended strategic advisory path. And voila, problem solved. We are now speaking to their before state, the confusing, painful place they are currently in. This is top of funnel content. It is where they first discover you, and it does very well in grabbing attention because you are speaking so clearly to exactly the state that they're in right now. Okay, the next post I want you to make is a receipt post, a before, after in real life language. So before, you may be experiencing scattered posting or guessing. After, a weekly rhythm that people recognize and respond to. So we're really speaking about the identity tension in the before state and then the desired end state. The way that you need to do this, you need to tell a proof story in a very particular way and make sure it continues the conversation. For example, this client came to us unsure whether they're ready for an agency, but hated battling her marketing alone. Instead, she discovered strategic advisory. And here's what happened next. So obviously that is a very basic way of telling that story, but you can see how simple it is and how much it would really resonate. This is middle of funnel content where, as I said, you have to tell stories in a very particular way, but when you do, you build the trust and you prove yourself that you can do what you say you're going to do and you can help them reach the endpoint that they are trying to achieve. Okay, now the next 2 types of posts are also top of funnel content because, as we know, top of funnel content should be 50% of your content. And right now, if you're really feeling this episode, it tells me that this is really where you should be focusing. We shouldn't be at a sales stage right now. It is all about getting attention because nobody's paying attention right now. And that's what we need to do first before we can start to really build that trust and then drive the sale. Okay, so the third post I want you to make is your method. It is where we talk about your approach in 3 steps. Headline it like a recipe. 3 steps I use to wake a sleepy audience. You teach one aspect of your signature approach. So for example, how to write a signature-informed audience strategy. These are some of the best posts that work for me on my TikTok actually, and you'll see me repeat that format over and over and over because I know that it really gets the people going and it really wakes a dormant audience up. And now the final post. This is a belief post. This is where you are drawing a line in the sand. For example, if you're trying to please everyone, you've already lost. It's controversial, sure, but what we want to do is invite thoughtful comments, not arguments. If you share a belief that is framed by your signature stance, it will sound something like this. If you're trying to hack your way to growth on socials with hooks, here's what you need to know. Now, you can very clearly see that we are speaking to our signature belief, to our stance, where we really don't believe in hacks and hooks and all those kind of tactical stuff. We don't believe that that is actually a replacement for strategy. And so that is how we're inviting that conversation and we're saying something different. Now, here's where I'm going to get a little bossy. That advice I just shared, that is 10 years of entrepreneurship and almost the same amount of time in marketing industry experience, all compounded together. This isn't basic bitch advice, it is solid. And you know that. But 99% of you, even if you think, oh wow, that sounds new and sounds super achievable, I love these structured posts, 99% of you won't do a fucking thing about it. Excuse my French. I don't know. I'm asking you, why aren't you taking the advice, the free advice that I'm giving you on the podcast? Ask yourself, Maddie just shared some of her best, most actionable, step-by-step marketing advice for free with active examples, and yet I'm probably going to do nothing about it. Now, if the answer hasn't come to you, I'm going to actually help you answer this question based on psychology. It is because of something called present bias, where we overvalue the comfort of now and we undervalue the future gains. So do it later will always win unless you have some serious motivation or if you have skin in the game. And this was a game changer for me when I figured out if I put skin in the game. So how do we get skin in the game? Commitment. One very reliable way to cross the best intention to action gap is to increase the stakes. Behavioral science calls this a commitment device. And the best way to do it is you add a cost to not following through. So here is the psychology behind this. It's called loss aversion. Humans hate losing more than they like winning. So free advice, it has no downside if you ignore it. Nothing happens, no loss, no action, because it was free, you didn't pay for it. But the minute you pay for something, you have something to lose if you don't follow through. That's why skin in the game works. A paid container, like advisory, like a program, like a coach, it turns your I should probably do this to I'm going to do this. Because ghosting your own goals, it's now costing you. I figured this out way back in 2020 when I hired my first business coach, and I just said to myself, I'm going to do everything that this woman tells me to do, even if I don't agree with it, because I want to get my money's worth. And what do you know? I went from 20K months to cracking the 100K a month revenue mark when I was working with her. So yes, you need a strategy that fits you. Pay for it. For us to do it or for you to do it through one of our programs so your brain treats it like a priority, not like a hobby. And then use the thing, use the strategy. I guarantee you're going to default to old habits unless you build prompts into your week. And so if you're good at self-discipline, I am not, but go you. What I want you to do is build some routines around the actions that you have to take from the strategy. So some examples of that look like implementation intentions. So if it's 9:30 on Monday, it means I draft the mirror post. If it's Wednesday at 11 a.m., it means that I publish the receipt post. The other thing you can do is something called habit stacking, which you probably have heard of before. If you haven't, it's where you attach the task that you have to do that makes you feel a bit uncomfy to something you already do. So for example, it might be after my first coffee, I outline tomorrow's method post. You have a coffee every day that you enjoy, and then you have to go and do the method post. Now, if you are like me and every time you get a whiff of the next shiny thing, you go running, my best advice, hire an advisor, a coach, someone that will hold the vision for you and keep you on track. This is why 100% of our advisory clients hit their initial goals within just 6 months of working with us. It's not because we necessarily know a whole lot more than them. A lot of our advisory clients are actually marketers themselves, but it's because we are holding the vision for them. We are pulling them up when they're getting distracted. They've got skin in the game. They've paid us. They want to get their money's worth. And so they're going to do the thing that is so much more powerful than jumping on ChatGPT, asking it to write you an audience or a brand strategy, and then forgetting the whole thing exists because you've had no skin in the game. Now, on a side note, I do want you to notice what I haven't been listing on the recommended actions that I've shared. I haven't been saying, jump on this trend or try this audio or try this viral hook. But if that is the current advice that you are getting, I'm sorry, but you need new advice. Tactics, yes, they can amplify a good message, but they cannot replace one. If your content isn't being heard, it isn't a tactics or even a volume problem, it is a clarity problem. And I want to prove it to you because I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me. So these are stories that I'm going to tell about two very different niches, very different industries, but the same principle. So the first is a quick story about a client of ours. Let's call her Danielle because that is her name. She works in civil and mining services, and she was convinced her market doesn't use social. Classic line, right? But that's just not true. What we know is that heavy industry, it is certainly male dominated. And what we know about marketing to men in particular is that they respond really well to very clear signals, extra clear, not bullshit, not glossy branding, not over-explaining, just straight facts. So with Danielle, what we did, we stripped everything right back. She had the most amazing, beautiful capability statement and she was so proud of it. But what we really focused on was giving her one line she could keep repeating. And that line was, we don't do glossy brochures, we do straight talking project wins. That became the anchor of all of her projects. And it actually completely went against that capability statement that she was so proud of, but that wasn't making her any more money. That wasn't selling her business. What we did then, we built her a simple rhythm on LinkedIn in particular. So one post each week, sharing a lesson, one a week only, sharing a lesson from the field in plain English, one showing proof of a project result, and one post doubling down on her stance. So then we built her a very simple rhythm on LinkedIn. In one post each week, she would share a lesson from the field and explain it in very plain English. In another post, she'd be showing proof of a project result. Obviously, we had to be very tricky with showing confidential areas on a mine site, but we were able to get around it with stock imagery and also face-to-camera style videos. And then we got to do another post, doubling down on her stance. That was only 3 posts a week, rinse and repeat, over and over and over. Now, here's the interesting bit. So in the first couple of weeks, nothing much happened. I think she got a few polite likes, the usual noise that exists on LinkedIn where random people comment. But by week 6, when she was consistent, we started noticing the difference. The comments started to shift. Instead of just, oh, great job from randoms, she was actually getting very specific questions from the exact people that she wanted to reach. People like project engineers, maintenance planners, and HSE leads, for example. These are the people with the budget and the authority to actually make decisions. And by week 9, she was getting inbound messages. Things like, can you share your shutdown SOP? Or do you work in XYZ region? These are buying questions. Those are signals from your audience that the right audience finally recognizes you and recognizes your content when you're getting messages like this. No, she didn't go viral. No, she didn't suddenly become an influencer overnight. What changed was that she became known consistently for the thing that mattered most to her audience. Reliable results, clearly communicated. And that is the power of clarity and social media. I think these results are pretty incredible considering social media doesn't work for mining, right? But now let's shift gears a little bit and go to the beauty brand founder that we just presented a strategy for. So Pressed Beauty, it is run by a founder who's got the dream combination. She has amazing products, a really, really strong brand story, and years of experience working in New York in advertising. As I said, a lot of our clients do have marketing backgrounds. She is no rookie. She knows good marketing when she sees it. Clearly, that's why she came and started working with us. And yet, when it came to her own brand, she was actually stuck. And this happens a lot. Even marketers or people in advertising get stuck. Her content just wasn't landing. And as I said, this is so common. As a founder, it's actually incredibly hard to write your own brand strategy, and it's because you're too close to it. You know it all in your head, but when you sit down to post, to make content, or even to write your strategy, you either get a 120-page document or it just doesn't come out clearly and it sounds generic. And because of this, it was also blocking her next big business decisions going into a new range because she felt so stuck on the content piece and she didn't feel like she could move forward into these other areas yet. That is why she came to us for a brand clarity strategy when she did. And what we uncovered was that her message, what she was telling us, was not what was reflected in her content. She'd slipped into the same space as every other beauty brand, talking features and benefits, using language that was really safe, but really forgettable. And that's exactly why no one cared. So what we did, Maria worked on this one, but I reviewed it and gave her some feedback. We stripped it right back to the one identity shift her audience really cared about, which was becoming the quiet expert. Not chasing influencer vibes, not wellness cliches, and definitely not overblown claims. What we worked out was the transform identity of the quiet expert. That is someone who feels reassured, in control, and very hopeful about long-term results. Now, here's the kicker. Press Beauty, this client, she hasn't even started implementing this yet at the time of recording this podcast, because we literally just presented the strategy. But when we did present the strategy to her, she admitted that she recognized everything that we'd put on the page. All of this was already in her head, which makes complete sense. She was just struggling to get this out in a way that her audience could actually feel. And that is the problem that we solve for her. That right there, that is the whole point of this episode. It doesn't matter if you're in mining, if you're in beauty, if you're in professional services. The reason people don't care about your content is always the same. You're not clear on your message. And if you're not clear, how can you expect your audience to be? It's why I will die on the hill that strategic clarity, that is the bra, that is the good bra that holds everything where you want it. It's a sports bra. So what I want you to do now is write this down, because if your content isn't being heard, these are the 3 things I want you to stop doing this week. First, stop leading with tools instead of truth. Post 3 reels a day, it's not a strategy. Neither is use this trending hook. If your audience is deciding whether to launch their side hustle or to keep it a hobby, you need to talk about that decision. Or maybe they're choosing between 2 providers. I need you to address that tension. A tool without truth is just busy work, and just talking about the tools or the features of your business, no one cares. Speak about the decision that they're making instead. Next, and this is a note for me, stop over-explaining. You don't need to give a university lecture in your caption or make a 5-minute video. If someone asks you a question like, should I boost this post? And your answer is 10 paragraphs covering every ad type, they're totally going to tune out. What I want you to do, 1 point, 1 answer, 1 clear action. The post that says something like, if you only have $100 to spend it here, will always beat a long-ass essay about all the different things that are going on in your head. Keep it very stupidly simple. Okay, number 3, stop borrowing other people's personality. If your post sounds like every other coach on TikTok, every other beauty brand, or every other boring ass mining company, the same tone, the same hooks, the same recycled frameworks and trends, people can't tell you apart. Maybe you're actually a really calm, quiet explainer. Or maybe you're like me, you're the savage truth teller. Or maybe you're the playful disruptor. I want you to pick it. I want you to own it, and I want you to repeat it until people could recognize your voice even without seeing your handle. What is your flavor of content? Figure that out. It might require some testing initially, yes, but what is your flavor, and then stick to that flavor. And now I want to give you some more encouragement, one more from my side. So I posted a very short video that did very little in the first few weeks of it being live, and I thought it flopped. But I then had a client assessment call a few months later, and what they told me was, I saved this video where you talked about XYZ, and I've been looking at it over and over and over, and it's what actually got me to book the call. And that taught me something. It taught me that content, it's not a shout, it is a signal. And I keep using that word. Signals need to be consistent to be discoverable. You may not always see the ripples, the effects in real time, but you also never know who's watching, who's saving, who's waiting for the right time, or waiting until they just simply cannot take it anymore, and then you are going to be the choice that they go to. Social media is a long-term investment. It's not a quick returns game. Okay, so what are the metrics that we should be looking at to see if our content is actually landing beyond likes and views? So one thing I really like is this idea of a language echo. So are people repeating back your phrases to you? When I'm on client assessment calls, I can hear people are resonating with my content because they're using very similar words to me. Words like strategy, funnels, psychology aligned, or talking about principles that I've addressed in my content. If people are writing or speaking to you in the same way that you speak to them, your clarity is sticking, and there is no metric behind that. Another good sign is the quality of questions. So are your DMs or comments, are they moving from the so true or love this or emoji to I'm here right now, I'm stuck at this decision point, what would you do? Do you see how better questions, it means your audience is getting closer and closer to actually making a decision. And it's up to you to continue that conversation. DMs are a very good channel in which to do that. Okay, so one prompt I want you to use tonight before you go to bed. One question I want you to think on. I want you to answer this question before you go to bed, and I want your subconscious brain to really mull this over and to toss and turn with this idea while you sleep. What is the question that people keep asking me privately that I'm tired of answering one-to-one? That is going to be tomorrow's post. It is clear, it's useful. Don't worry about making it perfect. Just hit publish, please, and send it to me. Share it with me and I'll be your fangirl, and I will be the one who comments if no one else does. Out of all of this, here is your biggest takeaway. No one caring is not the end of your social media journey. I hate that word. It is the beginning. It is your cue to get clear on who you're for, what you help them become, and the proof that you carry. Because when that clicks, when your content starts working, it's because your strategy is doing the heavy lifting, so you don't have to anymore. Now, if you want help turning these ideas that I've been throwing around in this episode into a living strategy that you can turn into a content strategy and that you can actually stick to, send me the word clarity on Instagram at Birdcage Angel Advisors, and I will point you to a simple next step where you can map your message very clearly and build a week of posts that people actually really care about. Okay, until next time, stop hiding, my friends. Say the thing that is true. Leave the breadcrumbs behind for your ideal audiences because the right people are looking for you. And also, you're a fucking badass if you keep showing up on socials when you feel like you're not being listened to. It is brave to do that. It is hard to do that. Trust me, take it from me. But every creator goes through it. And the creators that you now admire with big ass followings or even not so big followings, but that are really getting cut through and growing successful businesses through their content, it's because they were where you are right now and they didn't fucking give up. Now, I do have to ask, if you enjoyed this episode, make sure you leave a lovely review. It helps the podcast grow. And I would also really appreciate just to know what you think of the episode so far. It has been a few weeks since we have launched the new format, and yeah, I'm super curious.